Discussing an essay we just published on Substack. The title is Freedom is All You Need. And the idea is that we have seen recently a big tour by the Department of War talking about how we need a strong military to protect freedom. And I think this has been a narrative for a long time in the United States. And we're certainly standing behind that. We strongly believe that we need technological deterrence in the US to protect ourselves from external and internal enemies. But the point of this essay is that the way to get a strong military is through freedom. In other words, it's not the strong military that creates or protects freedom. It's the freedom that protects a strong military. So the essay is a manifesto for freedom and liberty as a disruptive power that allows a society like the United States to proliferate, become strong and impenetrable. It's also an appel to ourselves to maintain this freedom and liberty. I'm going to use liberty and freedom synonymously in the essay and also in this episode. It's not exactly the same thing, but we don't want to be stuck down in linguistic pedantries here. So we're just going to sort of mix this freedom and liberty a little bit. So the point again is that liberty is essential for a strong military and technological deterrence. Let me dissect a little bit what we mean with technological deterrence. Like here at Launch Capital Partners, we're very big at understanding what's the goal, like what is the purpose of whatever we do, like whether it's what we invest in, why we do what we do, whether it's when we talk to a company, what is the purpose of why do you do what you do? I think it's incredibly important to understand. So why do we want to have a strong technological society? What's the purpose actually of that, right? Is it wealth creation? Is it to employ people? What is it? And in our opinion, the ultimate reason for having the most advanced technological society is simply to protect yourself against bullies, totalitarian nightmare types, the ones that have been proliferated throughout history, from Genghis Khan to the Roman Empire to the Vandals and then Napoleon and Hitler and so on. Japan, Imperial Japan, the Soviets, and now China. Not all of them are terrible. China is not the worst country to live in right now, so we're not saying it's necessarily always the end of the world. There's certainly a difference between Nazi Germany and the Communist Party of China today in certain areas. In some areas, unfortunately, it's not. But the point is, we don't want to live like that. We want to live differently. We want to live free. And in order to live free, we have to maintain freedom, because that's the only way we can have a strong military. The connection we're making is, and this is epistemology 101, this is for people who have been listening to this podcast, maybe not news. Also, if you've been listening to Brett Hall's explanations about the fabric of reality of David Deutsch, if you read David Deutsch, or if you read Karl Popper, sort of the grandfather of all this, the idea is that freedom is the ultimate ground on which strength and knowledge and technological advancements can be built. Because freedom and innovation are two sides of the same coin. If you don't have freedom, you cannot have an advanced society. And by the way, we're not only talking about political freedom here, that's important, but it's freedom in academia, freedom in arts, freedom in the family. Like, you need to have freedom. Now, what is freedom, right? Again, we don't want to be boggled down in linguistic pedantry, so we're just gonna say it's a decentralized voluntary decision-making process. That's it. The reason this is important is it has to be decentralized and it has to be voluntary. And if you have a process like that where decisions can be made in a decentralized manner, you have the advantage of the calculation problem, or the solution to the calculation problem, according to Ludwig von Mises, which is simply that in a centrally planned society, in a top-down society, even with a benevolent dictator, even with somebody who actually wants the best for their people, they're always going to be late, and errors will compound. You need error correction, and error correction is the ultimate source of innovation, because innovation is just iteration and error correction. It's just one word for the process of rapid iteration and error correction. So you need to have that in place, and you have that with a decentralized voluntary decision-making process. You have that a lot more than if you have a totalitarian regime. So the point of this essay is, again, that what we need to is protect freedom, but we don't need to have a strong military to protect ourselves against the adversaries who want to take our freedom away. What we need to do is protect ourselves against our own tendency to destroy our freedom, and destroying our freedom will take away our strength. I can only, let's say, two examples in recent American history that illustrate that. The first one, the most recent one, is the Biden administration, and this is an anecdote from Ben Horowitz and Mark Andreessen, so I take it at face value. They met with the Biden administration shortly before the Biden administration left office, and there were plans to regulate math, or the kind of math that you can use in artificial neural networks, because they wanted to control artificial neural networks, so something like that. Now, as absurd as this sounds, apparently it's real, and it shows that, look, maybe these people were even well-intentioned. Maybe they thought that they need to protect themselves against, misuse of artificial intelligence in China or something like that. But of course, this is horrible, and would put us as a society way back, and destroy a lot of really well-intentioned, good, hard work that people have done over decades to build this country to where it is today. So that's one example. The other example would be the military-industrial complex speech by Dwight Eisenhower after World War II, actually after he left the office, I think, as president, just warning that we are our biggest enemy. And this is the core, or the meat of the essay, actually, is that we are the strongest and we are the best society in the world, because freedom is disruptive. And it's very unusual, because think about it. We had many, many interesting ideas and philosophies over thousands of years. The Chinese, the Indians, the Greek, the Romans, everybody had more or less the same ideas. Mathematics, a lot of basic stuff was around for thousands of years. The difference is, why did we get such a boost after the Renaissance and then the Enlightenment? It's because we introduced liberty. That's the power wasn't smart people thinking about, stars and math. That's been around for way before. It's that we introduced liberty, and we introduced decentralized voluntary decision making. We introduced error correction, and that's what we call the scientific method. And that boosted, scientific knowledge, beauty, all these kinds of things. And we are, by the way, that's not part of the essay, but certainly I want to say it here. We're certainly on a decline. We have seen many, developments, postmodernism, brutalist architecture, what I just mentioned with the Biden administration, particularly under the COVID regime that we were living for years, even after COVID, and that only now is kind of lifting because thanks to Donald Trump and some of the movements around the world against this totalitarian coercion into some woke type oriented ideology that is very dangerous. Now, it doesn't mean that the Trump people are saints, and they also are running the risk, or as I say in the essay, Emmanuel Macron is crossing a very dangerous line by calling free speech bullshit and putting his political adversaries behind bars and things like that. That's a very dangerous line. No matter what the pretext is, the guys who were against free speech were always the bad guys in history. It's just like, so we have to be very careful. And I think so far so good. As much noise as there is in the United States, we have plenty of evidence that the Trump administration is not, totalitarian. Our Olympic athletes are going online, bashing the government. They're not behind bars. They're not in jail. Social media is full of criticism against leadership in the United States, TV, everything. So we have a very healthy, violent debate, but a healthy debate, and that's a good sign. So we think, as many problems as we have, liberty is not a problem that we have. We're still the freest society by far in the world. We need to keep that because that's what's going to drive innovation, technology. Again, we make the connection between innovation, technology, rapid iteration, error correction, and technological deterrence, because that's how you get to scientific innovation. That's how you get to new heights. And actually, Ben Horowitz just recently in an interview said something very interesting. I've never thought about this. That maybe part of the reason why physics after the sort of 1930s and 40s, pretty much after World War II, actually physics as a science has declined. It's still a prestigious science. My son's studying physics right now at Berkeley, and he says, look, it's great. I mean, intellectually challenging, but what's the use of it? And the reason it's so, stifled, in my opinion, is, and that's Ben Horowitz's words, that maybe, he's conjecturing that maybe there is too much classified stuff there. Maybe the government's meddling in there too much, and that's not a good thing for any kind of science or anything. Again, it just makes the case for decentralized voluntary decision making, error correction, market-driven decision making, which is the same thing like decentralized voluntary decision making. You need some sort of mechanism, of course, and the essay is not about that. So this is not a structural essay where we talk about, okay, how should we actually aggregate those decisions? For example, in political science, you think about what's the best voting mechanism, and should you have electoral votes, and should you have majority or not majority? I mean, those are interesting questions. We're not talking about those. We're just in general, just saying voluntary, decentralized decision making is the way to go. We need to protect that by all means, because that is our strongest weapon. That is the nuclear weapon that we have that's much more potent than nuclear power, actually. And we're the only ones that have that type of power. I mean, as far as I know, even Europe, I know some of my friends in Australia, Canada, and Europe might disagree. They might think, well, we live in a free society. You don't. Just look at what happened during COVID. People in Australia and New Zealand were quarantined in hotels. In France, I think you had to have a number to go out for 2 hours a day. We did not have any of that stuff. Even here in California, which is the most left-wing woke state in the country, we were really very free. It wasn't to my liking, and we were masked and harassed, and my son couldn't go to school. But it wasn't as bad as almost even my home country, Switzerland, was worse than California. Although Switzerland was much better than most countries, except of course Sweden, which, kudos to them, was able to avoid all this nonsense during COVID. But back to the essay. Excuse me. So to summarize, it is liberty which creates great armies, and not great armies that protect liberty. That's the key fundamental statement of this essay. We need a great army. We need innovation. We need technological advancements. We want to be the ones who run space, run AI, decide foundation models, decide what the values are of the AI. We want to have the high ground in space. We want to harness all the energy, Kardashev 2 and 3 and all that. We want to be the ones, not somebody else, because our way of life is superior, because liberty and freedom are disruptive power. They enable people to live better lives, pursue better goals, and most crucially, they enable people to actually improve on that very liberty that they are living in, and therefore also improve their circumstances in a broader sense. Thank you.